Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I, of course, am Sarah Alapin, your hostess with the mostest on the Wedding Dish podcast and CEO of Photos from the Hardy and District Bliss. Before we get started, if you haven't listened to last week's episodes, it is all about vows. I interviewed the vow whisperer. She is absolutely lovely. And if you are thinking about writing your own vows or deciding if it is the best fit for you to write your own vows, that episode's for you. So check it out. Thank you everyone for tuning into the Wedding Dish. Today we are talking with an artist who offers a modern version of floral preservation with keepsakes cast in resin. It's the human behind Bloomsake, Judi Gevara. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I know I'm really excited to hear a little bit about your process and all of the things that go into preserving wedding florals. Are you
Yes,
ready?
I am so ready.
All right, let's dish. So, before we go into kind of technique and a little bit about the actual preservation of florals, why might couples want to preserve their wedding florals?
Yeah, so my biggest reason for that is that you spend so much time picking out the perfect flowers for your wedding day, for your special day. And it's just so sad to only able to enjoy them for one day and have to throw them away at the end of the night. And so that's really, mainly why I think that everybody should preserve their flowers. And also, it's just so nice to have something in your house that you can look at every day and just take you back to your wedding day.
I agree. I think it's really cool. And I think the way that you have gone about doing this is so interesting and unique. And it's just really beautiful because you can use them as decor or functional pieces. Well, and both
Yes.
decor and functional pieces.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of course. So, what is the best time to explore preserving your wedding flowers?
Yeah, so I think that whenever you make a decision for which flowers you're going to pick, if it's something that you are considering it, then when you pick out your flowers, I think it's something that you should think about picking out flowers that will work well with preserving your flowers, because there are flowers that do really well with preservation, but there's also flowers that don't really do well with preservation. So a lot of times tropical flowers are so beautiful, but they're actually one of the hardest flowers to preserve. And a lot of times they discolor and there's just so many things that go into it. I'm not saying still don't get tropical flowers. If that's your vibe, then totally go for it. We can still make it happen. But if you feel like preservation is something that you want to do, then sometimes it's nice to think about it already when you're choosing your flowers, talking to your florist about which ones to use.
That's so interesting. So, in terms of the flowers like preserving well, is it based around like the texture? Because tropical flowers that I'm thinking of are very like delicate and
Yes.
fine. And so it's the texture. How in
There's so many things that go into it. Texture is definitely one of them. For example, with the tropical flowers, a lot of them are very they're just very water based. Like orchids, for example, there's actually a lot of moisture in it. Or anthuriums, there's a lot of moisture in them, and so when you dry them, they actually dry very, very fragile. So with orchids, the petals, they become very, very thin, and so that makes it very delicate. And same with anthuriums, they actually dry very dark. They almost dry brown or burgundy sometimes. And so with that, that's just stuff that you can consider. But there's also a lot of ways to go about it once they're dry, and stuff, options to explore.
absolutely. That's really cool. How fascinating.
Thank you.
So, what is the difference between preserving dried flowers, like if you weren't sure you were going to do it and you dried your bouquet, and fresh florals?
So, with our pieces, when working with resin, we have to dry all of the flowers regardless, because with resin it doesn't do well with moisture, it actually reacts with it, so we can't physically dry fresh flowers. However, with our process, the way that we dry the flowers, we have a drying sand that we use that basically dries the flowers without taking away its color or shape. So a lot of times it'll hold that color. Sometimes the colors might dry darker, but it's very different as if you were drying it upside down hanging, which is something that's also beautiful, but it's just a different kind of style.
Oh, that's so fascinating because when I was looking at your site, I was convinced that you dried them or you didn't dry them
Right,
because they're
right.
so vibrant and they look exactly like they do when they're in like, the bouquet.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's so with that it's like just a special drying technique that we use to make it look like it's still the fresh flowers.
Oh, okay. So, in other words, if you are going to, if you think you want to preserve your flowers, don't dry them yourself.
You can, a lot of, and also that's another thing. It's just all about styles. Like you can totally dry it yourself and have more of that kind of like natural kind of style, and that's what makes it look different. And also, a lot of times we actually have worked with our clients who didn't know about us until months or a few years after the wedding, who has dried their own flowers, and so that's still doable. We can still work with that. It's just, it doesn't look as fresh, but it's still gorgeous. And you still have that memory of your wedding day florals with you.
Yeah, and that might go better in some people's houses than the fresh, vibrant
Oh,
flowers.
exactly. Like a lot of times, like a lot of people have like that boho kind of vibe. And I think with that kind of style, the natural dried flowers just sets the tone for it and it looks so beautiful.
I love that. That's so interesting.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm curious, how did you come up with let's talk a little bit about like the types of pieces that you create.
Yes.
I know that we're describing something on a audio media that is a visual thing. But I when I was looking at your website, I was like, this is so interesting. What are some of your favorite ways to preserve florals in resin?
Yeah, so we focus on resin preservation. And so with that, there's so many different styles that you can pick from. My favorite would be our gold handle display tray, just because it's so gorgeous. It is something that is also a little bit more functional. I am a functional gal. I like kind of like, designing and styling my table. And so with that, you have so many different options of like styling it, and you can style it up, style it down. There's just so many different kind of like options that you can do with that. And so that is definitely my favorite piece that we have to offer. And it's also bigger, so you can put more flowers in it.
Oh, that's a good point too. Interesting. I really like the ring holder as well.
Yes, that's also one of my favorite pieces. It's so hard because to me, they're all so fun and pretty.
It's true. They are, and they're all different, but it's like there's something for everyone. And I was actually thinking you could do a really cool boutonniere ring
Yes.
holder.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've actually we get that all the time from our clients. They will order to, just because sometimes their fiancés or now husbands are like, okay, well, what about me? So and a lot of times, their boutonniere is a perfect piece to put inside the ring holder.
Yeah. So to describe the ring holder a little bit, it's kind of it's almost like a crystal piece.
Yes, it's kind of like a crystal sphere, like kind of like diamond looking type of shape, like a crystal diamond pyramid type of shape. It's pointy on top, so so it's easy for you to just drop your ring in.
And it fits any size ring, so it's perfect.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I think that's so cute, and it's like the right size for a nightstand or if you I have ring stands all over, and it's funny because I don't wear my ring very often. But I have them all over the house because if you're doing something like doing the dishes or whatever, you want to be able to take
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a ring stand in the kitchen because you don't want to take that off and then potentially have it get in the sink.
Right.
So
Garbage disposal. Ooh.
yep, yep. I've seen that happen in my life to other people, and I
Yeah.
don't want it to happen to me.
Oh no, that would be so bad. So definitely it's small enough to where you can put it in different places and still have it look really beautiful, but it's also like heavy enough to where you don't have to worry about it spilling or falling or, getting into the dishes.
Also, a good reminder to take your ring off when you do the dishes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah, I have one in the bathroom too. I
Yeah.
You could actually do multiples of like the boutonniere and like your flowers. Like if you wanted to do something that's a little bit smaller, you could do multiple ways of
Yeah.
preserving your
We
flowers.
also have an accessory holder, which is another really fun item. It's a little bit of a bigger version of the ring holder, and you can put a little bit more flowers, but you can put, your bracelets and your watches on there, and it's just a fun little accessory to have right next to your ring holder.
I love that. I love that. And I think I saw that you do like letters too.
Yes. Yes, we do. So we have two sizes of the letters. We have a larger and a smaller one. And it's just a fun little accessories, for all the gals who choose to change their last name. It's just a fun little, piece just to show off your new last name and just to celebrate it.
I think that's so cute. I could like see them above a bed or, I mean, you could put them almost anywhere in your house. And
Hmm.
also, I probably should have said this at some point. Resin is clear,
Correct. Yes.
which
Resin is clear.
which may seem obvious, but for those of us out there that don't know,
It is a newer, like a newer, not a newer art medium, but I feel like floral preservation, especially resin floral preservation, is a little bit of a newer kind of style to preserve your flowers. I know like a lot of people like have, done like resin jewelry and stuff like that, which is actually how I got started. That's where I kind of like got the inspiration from. But I will say, like, I feel like floral preservation with resin is a little bit more of like a newer kind of trend. And of course, we're seeing it all over social media right now. But I feel like a lot of people still like I try to explain what it is, and they're like, "Oh, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm gonna have to see a photo of it." And then once I show them, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome! I didn't even think you can do that." So it's really fun to be able to kind of introduce this new art to everybody and just be able to, preserve people's wedding memories.
that's really cool. And okay, so now I have to ask this. Do you create jewelry with people's flowers?
So currently, we have not. I've done it before, yes, but it's just not. So we're actually working on something right now, and it's not perfect. And I don't like to put anything out unless it's amazing and perfect. So we're definitely working on a little bit of something. So stay tuned for that.
You are gonna have to let me know. I'm so
Yes, I
excited.
definitely will. We
I
will.
think that could be so cool. Like you could have a wearable piece of your wedding for
Exactly.
and it could be something cool that if you decide to have children later, you could pass down to use as like a little like piece of their bouquet, which could
Exactly.
be really cool too.
Yes. Definitely so many options to explore.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So, you got started with jewelry. I was going to ask you what inspired you to preserve flowers in
Yeah.
this artistic way?
So, I have been always super creative, but I actually have been in the wedding industry for quite some time now. I used to be a bridal gown consultant. And so, something that I have noticed when I would help my brides and their moms is that they will always ask about two things, bridal gown preservation and also floral preservation. And so, bridal gown preservation, that's something that we've already seen. That's something that's a little bit more common. However, with floral preservation, this was back in like 2018, 2017, 2018. It wasn't as popular, especially resin floral preservation. And so I started, experimenting with different ways of preserving flowers. I was pressing flowers and I did press frames, which is something that we also offer. But then I felt like that was also something that has been done, and I wanted to kind of find a different type of style. And so then, I remembered that resin jewelry was something that has been done and something that's pretty common. And those a lot of times will have different types of dried flowers. And so it kind of just like clicked, and so I was like, okay, well, if we can kind of put flowers in the jewelry, then why can't we make it into like other pieces? And so from then on, I kind of just started experimenting. And also, I think, obviously I'm not the only one who does this. So I think by that time too, like there were other people, other artists who were also experimenting. And so everybody just kind of like, gave each other tips and figured it out. And here we are today.
I
And it's
think that's
definitely
so.
a lot of trial and error and practice. Resin is not easy to work with.
What is the process like?
So with resin, what it is, it starts off as a liquid. There's two parts of it, so you have to mix it together. And there's different types of resin actually. There's like surprisingly, there's just so many different options. And so you have to pick like which resin works with the flowers. And there's some that do and some that don't. And so you mix the two parts together and then it turns into a more clear liquid, and then you pour it into the flowers. However, with the flowers, you need to make sure that they're completely dry, because if it's not, then it reacts with the resin. So it's a lot of it's a lot of behind the scenes figuring out the perfect amount of resin to use, because also if you use too much, then that causes a reaction and it starts heating up, and there's just so much that goes into it.
That's so fascinating. I mean, it's something you truly can't make a mistake with. So,
Yes, like we have been doing this for a few years now, and so we have got it down to our science and our process. So we're pretty confident about like not messing up any pieces, especially since this is so important. It's your wedding memory, so we want to be as careful and as caring with the process and products as possible.
amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the wedding dish today. This has been so much fun. I've loved learning about this. I think science is amazing. So it's like right after my own heart with weddings and
Yes.
science and cool artistic techniques and
Yeah, and when you
decor
blend
all
the
in
two
one.
together, exactly.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find Bloomsake online?
Yes, absolutely. So we are available on our website. Our website is www.bloomsake.com. And then we're also on all major social media platforms. And you can just find us at Bloomsake.
Amazing. And while you are finding Judi and Bloomsake, you can find the wedding dish at theweddingdishpodcast.com. And we'll have show notes there and all kinds of good stuff. And we'll make it super easy to link out so you can find Judi right away there. Also, as always, we will have some behind the scenes business things on there as well. And we are at the Wedding Dish Podcast on social media. This has been so much fun, Judi. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, I had so much fun chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, you are welcome back anytime, friend. Everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for tuning into the Wedding Dish. And until next time, cheers.